Hi, Gabrielle. Let's take a look at this new set of essays. Let's see. Large amounts of money on art for quality in people's lives, but others say that government should spend money on other things. Let's see what you said. These days, to improve people's quality of life, the government spends most of its, because look, it's one government. The government spends most of its budget on art like music or dancing. However, some people believe that the government should spend all of their money on public services such as education or health. So all of its money. I believe, although it is important to spend most of the government's '(S) budget on public services, it is also necessary to support the arts sector. This essay will analyze both sides and use examples from the UK government and Harvard to demonstrate points with an S and support arguments. Okay, so far so good. So let's keep going and see what you wrote in the next paragraphs. On the one hand, spending money on public services like hospitals and education is... All right, let's try the sentence again because there's a problem with it, which is making me have to reread it like 5 times. So, first of all, you're saying essential features, but then your subject here is spending money. And spending money is not an essential feature, but services like hospitals and education are essential features. So we really have to rewrite this sentence so that it makes sense. Let me show you what I mean. So on the one hand, public services like hospitals and education are essential features for society because they influence our quality of life. All right, do you see how that makes sense? But you also want to include this element of spending money. So we have to rewrite the sentence if we want to include this. So let's try that. On the one hand, spending money on public services like hospital and education is essential because these influence our quality of life. Okay, so there were 2 ways you could have gone with this sentence, but you do absolutely have to make one of those decisions so that grammatically it's accurate. So, for example, if the government spends not enough money in hospitals, it could negatively affect our healthcare system, and as a result, people would receive, because it's a hypothetical situation here, okay? People would receive a reduced quality of healthcare, which could lead to more severe illness. Another reason is that if there is not enough money on schooling, children will not receive a proper education, which is essential for future jobs. A study by the UK government indicates that economic success is based on high-quality academic education. Therefore, the government should support public services instead of spending money on art. Okay, good. Okay, hold on, what happened here? You meant to say on the other hand. So, on the other hand, there are several reasons why the government should support the arts sector. The reasons are twofold. First and foremost, art such as dance or music, concerts, give people a great you can't say a great pleasure feeling. You could say a great feeling of pleasure. That works, all right? Which is important for a better quality of life. For example, recent research from Harvard indicates that going to a concert at least 3 times a year, not with 4, reduces 85% of mental illnesses such as depression. The second reason is that art can expose or reflect people's feelings, which is vital to develop a person's self-awareness and emotions. For instance, the famous painter Johann Vermeer mentioned in an article that he was deeply inspired by the masterpiece The Night Watch from Rembrandt, and as a result, he created one of his own well-known paintings. Therefore, the government should spend money on art because it improves people's quality of life and might develop a person's emotions. Okay, fair enough. To conclude, from the arguments and examples given, I believe it is important to spend most of the government's budget on public services because they play an essential role in our society. However, in my opinion, it is also important to support the arts sector because it gives, arts sector, one thing, it gives people a feeling of significant pleasure and it also develops personal emotions. Therefore, I would suggest spending most of the government's budget on public services, but a part of the budget should be spent on art. Okay, it was clear. It was very clear. I thought you did a really nice job. Little things that I corrected here and there, as you saw, but I thought this was a great essay. I thought you dealt with... I thought you explained it really clearly. You said that, you know what, priority should be these major services, but you can't ignore art. Primary, of course, to quality of life is the healthcare and education, as you said, and then secondary as a priority would be art. I thought you made it very clear that this was your position throughout. It made absolute sense throughout, so it read very easily and very well. So good job, Gabrielle. I liked this. I thought you did great. Okay, now let's take a look at this task 1. Okay, you can't stretch it more. Yeah, this one's a tricky one. Let's see what you did. First of all, how many words is it? Eesh. Okay, it's 130 words, so we'll do it together. All right, we'll figure out how you could have stretched it. The bar chart illustrates the average band score of men and women who attended the IELTS academic test on 4 different subjects, and you see what they are, in the year 2012. Overall, males had a lower score on the subject. Wait, males. Males are purple. Okay. They had a lower score than women in everything on the subjects S, listening, speaking, writing, and reading compared to females. For both genders, the score on every section was around 6. Get rid of the. All right. The second sentence ceases to be an overview. Remember, because you're using data now, and so I would have preferred that you didn't write that. So instead, what you could have said here is, overall, although the scores for all 4 sections for both genders were relatively similar, generally speaking, men scored lower than females. Okay? This way it sounds like an overview, but you're not really including data, which would make it sound like a detail. All right, let's see what you said in the detail paragraph. Regarding the chart, females had the highest score of 6.1, okay, on the subjects listening and reading. Okay, this was 0.3 higher compared to males, which scored on both subjects of 5.8. Well, that's a little awkward. Should be who, not which. Also for speaking, males had a 5.8, and this was 1/10 higher compared to females who had a score of 5.9. Both males, S, and females had the lowest score on the part of writing with 5.4 and 5.6 respectively. All right, so one of the things you could have done is you could have given this a conclusion. Okay? You don't need it, but sometimes in a task like this, it helps kind of consolidate some of these differences. So what you could have said in your conclusion was, for example, the highest score for women was just above a 6 in 2 of the areas, and the lowest score between both genders was found in writing among men. Okay, so you could have done that. And then you could have also said, however, both scored around a 6. So there were a lot of different ways you could have, like I said, just consolidated this information, kind of restate it, look at it a different way. That's one way you can deal with an underlength task like this. I realize that this one is really hard, but because there's just so little information. But we have seen things like this before. Remember, look, we even had that pie chart where there was like 6 pieces of like crops. I mean, that was really tricky too. So, and you've done that one. So take a look at what we said you could have done, or ways you could extend it, how you can extend it, okay? Like I said, I know a lot of these are similar, but there are ways to do it, okay? So let's talk about some of those ways. One thing you could have done is you could have had a paragraph just for the women's scores and then a paragraph just for the men's scores. You kind of mushed them all together, all right, and you didn't need to do that. So you could have said that the highest score, the highest average score was a 6.1. This score was achieved by women in both the listening and the reading tests. The lowest score for women was 0.4 points lower, and this was found in the reading section of the IELTS test. Women scored 0.3 better in speaking, where they almost approached a 6, scoring an average of 5.9. Okay, so you can see I'm really stretching this information out. Okay, and it's not, by the way, it's not average, it's mean scores, forgive me. And then you could do something very similar for men. So what's the variation here? It's like 0.5, right? So between the highest score and the lowest score was 0.5. What is it for men? Here the variation for men is just 0.4, really. So it's not really a big difference, but it's interesting. That's another connection you could have made, okay? So you could have said that for the males taking IELTS, the mean score was 5.8 in 3 of the sections, specifically listening, reading, and speaking. As far as writing is concerned, this was the lowest score between the genders, where men scored 5.4, 0.4 lower than the other 3 sections. So there are ways you could just kind of, you know, really stretch everything out and extend. All right, so that's some of the things you could have done. And again, try what I said about having a conclusion. And when you do have a conclusion, it's okay to put data because it's not an overview. It's a conclusion, which has a different kind of function. All right, so think about some of those things. See if you can utilize some of my suggestions. And let's see, do we have more essays from you? I'm not really sure where we are with your package. Let me know. I hope we do. I still want to see more work from you. So I'll be looking forward to it. Do let me know either way, okay? And I'll be waiting to hear from you. Good luck.